Hello there, you wee willy winkies. Andy Murray here for What Culture Wrestling, flying solo on today's news video, primarily because nobody else in the office, presenter-wise, is daft enough to come in on a Saturday. But today we're going to have all the usual stuff, the usual mix of stories, and there are a lot to get through today. We'll have some Twitter questions and even an "and" finally at the end, so stay tuned for all of that goodness. But I'm not going to stand here and kind of rant bollocks at you. There's lots to get through. So coming up today, we've got stories on all the cool things announced for next week's WWE Raw. And trust me, there are a lot of cool things. We've got an update on AEW's TV rating. Will it be PG or will it be something a little edgier? We also have the real reason Renee Young might be taking off WWE Raw. We've got news on whether or not NXT will be treated as its own third main roster brand when it moves to the USA Network. And of course, we have a story again on Kacy Catanzaro, but this one comes from the person who might know her best. So, without further ado, this is the news. It's not really how Adam says it, but screw it. F the police and all that other rebellious nonsense. Anyway, we're going to kick things off with a big story coming out of a massive Raw creative meeting that was held yesterday. This comes to us via friend of the channel, Brian Alvarez, of Figure 4 Online / The Wrestling Observer. He kind of stated yesterday that this thing went on all day long. Everyone was there. Vince McMahon, his massive writing team, everyone who matters. And apparently Vince was basically on everybody's arse to be as creative as possible. So the idea here is that not only is this the Clash of Champions go-home show, which is pretty important in itself, but WWE are also going head-to-head with the NFL. The NFL opening fixtures take place this week. And, you know, I think the Patriots and the Steelers are on Monday night. I don't really know anything about NFL football, but I've heard of those teams, so it must be pretty big. There's also a quote from Shagger Dave Meltzer, Alvarez's colleague on this, who says, Raw is expected to be loaded this week as far as an attempt to put on a good standalone show goes, since it's the first week against the NFL, not to mention it being in Madison Square Garden, of course, WWE's spiritual home. He adds that there is very much going to be an attempt to make news on this show for all of those reasons, which sounds bloody lovely, really, doesn't it? I mean, Raw's been, in general, pretty damn great lately, and if WWE are hell-bent on making news on this story, I'm sure it'll be wonderful. In fact, I can't really remember when the last time a bad Raw actually happened was, so fingers crossed this one will live up or exceed those high recent standards. And speaking of Raw, moving on to our next story, rather seamlessly, if I might add, good work there, Andy. There's a whole bunch of stuff been announced for this show, and it all looks awesome. So yesterday, WWE announced 3 big matches. The first one, and this thing is laced with story, is Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch teaming up, career rivals teaming up to face on Sasha Banks and Bayley. So obviously a continuation of recent storylines. Bayley turned heel, attacking Becky Lynch. Sasha Banks is back as a heel, and that is for Charlotte and Becky, their respective challengers at Clash of Champions, to come together in an unholy alliance. That will be awesome. We've also got a couple of awesome little random singles matches here that I think are going to absolutely rule. AJ Styles versus Cedric Alexander, non-title, but that should be a banger. And speaking of bangers, Rey Mysterio is back in the ring. Luchador versus Luchador. He is facing off against, I think, one of the most underrated wrestlers maybe in the world at the moment, Gran Metalik. The guy's awesome, king of the ropes, all that stuff, walking around doing flippy-dippy-doo-dahs all the live long day, but he never gets a chance to do anything cool. So here's hoping to get time. Here's hoping they're allowed to show what they can do. And on top of that, of course, we already know there's the King of the Ring semi-final there with Ricochet facing off against both Baron Corbin and not Seth Rollins. I was about to say Seth Rollins. That would have been idiotic. It's not Seth Rollins, it's Samoa Joe. And apparently, according to Dave Meltzer, the idea behind this is that if Ricochet looks good against 2 heels and not just one, WWE might give him a massive push. So, you know, that sounds good. I like Ricochet. It's really fun. And finally, of course, Steve Austin will be in the house to moderate the contract signing between Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins. You know, these contract signings tend to be a bit predictable, but if Steve Austin's there, I think it'll be pretty cool. So Raw is absolutely stacked, uncharacteristically stacked, given that Clash is essentially a B show, but it sounds like WWE are determined to kill it, and can't really complain about that, can we? They're doing good things in the moment. Speaking of companies that are doing good things, let's move on to AEW. Their TV kicks in, of course, on the 2nd of October. It's going to be a big show, one of the most important wrestling nights of the year because the Wednesday Night Wars are back. And we have a report here from Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, who has confirmed that TNA have classified AEW's show not as PG rated, but as TV-14, which is kind of in line with everything we've heard so far. He also writes that AEW and TNT have come to an understanding they want a somewhat edgier show than what WWE produced, but TNT have given them some guidelines that AEW will not be allowed to kind of step over. So presumably you won't be seeing any blood matches like Cody versus Dustin on television, chair shots, things like that, but it does sound like the product will have more of an edge. So I think that's really appealing to people who are just looking for something a little bit different. I'm not one of those people who necessarily thinks that PG is the devil, by the way, but the idea of kind of a slightly grittier show, something that differentiates from WWE, can only really be a positive thing. Also, on top of this, TNT have not classified this as an entertainment show, as WWE's have been with their networks. This is classified as a sports event. So again, more good news, and it's in line with AEW's general presentation so far. They want to feel like a real sport. They're going to try and do that. I think this is all great, but let us know what you think in the comment section below. We can pivot back to WWE here for a minute, and we're going to talk about Renee Young, who, you know, she's in a kind of a difficult spot because I think she's a very talented broadcaster. She's a great presenter. Talking Smack was awesome. She does a great job on these kickoff shows. Not the best commentator in the world, unfortunately, but that doesn't matter because apparently Fox TV networks, and again, this is according to Dave in the Observer, lots of news from him today, Fox executives, who of course will take control of SmackDown, moves to Fridays, are very high on Renee Young. They love her, and they might even want to make her a SmackDown exclusive once the big move goes ahead. Once WWE, of course, make their announced teams and their broadcast teams more distinct when the brands are separated after the next draft. So interesting stuff there. Obviously, if WWE are going to go ahead with specific teams for specific shows, they'll need to get her off Raw, move her over to SmackDown. There's also the situation with Corey Graves, who currently works both shows. But this is good to hear, man. I think Renee Young, like no word of hyperbole, might be one of the most underutilized people in the company. I know I've just spoken about Grand Metalik as a wrestler, but she's a really skilled broadcaster. She's really tremendous. I think she's a lot better than she's allowed to show on TV at the moment. So we already know that she's going to host the studio show on FS1, which is going to be kind of like WWE's equivalent of what's it called, UFC Tonight. How can I forget the bloody UFC, man? That'll be really cool. It'll give her a chance to show that skill, and maybe someday, you know, I think she's destined to end up on a bigger sports network outside of WWE, broadcasting to perhaps a wider audience and not such of a niche product. I know they're getting millions of views and stuff, but she's great. Let's hope it works. Let's hope it pays off, and let's hope those announced teams are indeed freshened up. But we're going to move on now. We're going to stick with WWE, however, and just pivot slightly. Talk a little bit about NXT now. NXT, of course, debuts on USA on the 18th of September. Big day, big occasion for NXT. This has led to a lot of speculation as to whether or not the show will be treated as a third main roster brand, as theoretically it'll have the same goddamn platform as Raw. But according to Dave, and yes, I'm well aware that we're quoting Dave a lot today, that won't be the case. NXT will still very much be kind of seen as this developmental platform from which wrestlers will still be called up to Raw and SmackDown. It's kind of going to progress as it is, although it'll be 2 hours long and on a big station and so forth. Not a whole lot is going to change there. Now, there's currently no word on whether any call-ups will be made before the 18th of September debut on the USA Network, but there has been a lot of discussion about the chance of NXT people being involved in the next draft, which I believe takes place in the first or second week of October. Brain's a little fuzzy this morning, as is my throat. So we could see some shakeups. We could see some of NXT's biggest names maybe moving on, maybe moving to Raw and SmackDown for this big TV shakeup that's coming in October. Interestingly, you have things like Roderick Strong versus Velveteen Dream booked for the first show. You wonder maybe if Velveteen Dream might lose his belt, he might be a candidate to move up. But there's all kinds of other people as well. I think Shayna Baszler, who I think has had a tremendous run in NXT, has probably done everything she can. Maybe time for her to lose the belt and move on. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see who moves, but also kind of cool to see that despite the new platform, NXT as we know it is not going to change too much. And now, guys, we have hit our final story. Kacy Catanzaro. It's a name we've mentioned a lot lately. It was reported earlier in this week that she quit WWE. That was due to injury. It was then refuted. Apparently she's still there, she's just not wrestling. And now we've got a quote from Ricochet, who is, of course, her partner, her boyfriend, who gave an interview with Sports Illustrated. And, well, I don't really know what to make of this, but you guys can kind of make your own mind up. Speaking about Catanzaro, Ricochet said she's still with the company, she's not retired, and she's not injured. It's a tough sport and we're all hurting, but there is nothing wrong with her. And then he was asked, will she wrestle again? And he said, I don't know. So that still is clear as mud then. Doesn't really clarify anything because while he says she's not injured and she's not retired, he doesn't know if she's ever going to wrestle again, and she hasn't done so since July. So it's a really weird situation, this. Obviously, perhaps there's something going on, perhaps there's an issue that hasn't been brought to light. Either way, I would just kind of like to see her in the ring again because she's really good. But if that's not going to work out for her, then so be it. It'd be a shame to see her go. But these performers have obviously got to make the best decision for them. So screw what I think, basically. Anyway, time to move on. Time to do your Twitter questions. As usual, got 3 of the best here. Sent to us at WhatCultureWWE, hashtag this is the news. We're going to start things off with one from Michael CosETM on Twitter, who asks, why do I have a sinking feeling that we will get Elias versus Ricochet in the King of the Ring final? Elias gets injured. Shane McMahon takes his place and wins to become the best king in the world. Please, God, no. Oh man, that's a really strong possibility there, isn't it? I was just considering that hellish nightmare in my head. I think this could definitely happen. It's Shane McMahon, it's WWE, this is what they love to do with him. It would absolutely suck, and it would get a rightful amount of criticism, but it would also kind of be worthwhile because I think the Meltdown Online would be a lot of fun to follow, and at the end of the day, chaos is more fun than boring stuff. So, you know, Ricochet would probably be a better winner, in fact, definitely be a better winner, but at least Shane would provoke some hilarious responses. Another one here from Jobin on Twitter asks, what if it's not The Fiend that's challenging Rollins and Strowman at Hell in a Cell, and just the goofy kids show Bray Wyatt? Provides the opportunity to separate the two characters and keep everyone strong. I think this is a great idea because you can go into the pay-per-view hyping it up, like suggesting it's The Fiend. Everyone's sitting there, they're expecting this hellish nightmare of a character to come out. I don't know, suddenly it's this geography teacher guy with his sweater and his collared shirt and all the puppets and stuff. I think it'd be hilarious, and it would give them a chance to work a completely different style, give Bray the chance to show that he can work a completely different style. I don't know what you would do with the outcome, that's the quandary for me, but I think it's a great idea. It would keep it unpredictable, fresh, exciting. Yeah, I'm all for that. Final question today comes from Christopher95 Collins on Twitter. I don't know why I keep saying on Twitter, it's called Twitter Questions, Andy, you idiot. He asks, if you had to pick only one What Culture office member to get to be in WWE or AEW as a superstar, who would you pick? And they would pick Simon Miller, good choice, or Adam Wilborn, good choice. Muscles, Simon Miller, and charisma, perfect package. And of course, Adam Wilborn is just the greatest man who ever lived. So, I mean, it's really easy for me to go for the same. It would also be kind of easy for me to go Phil Chambers because, you know, he's a trained wrestler and he can do all the bumps and all the stuff. But, you know, that's kind of boring. So I'm going to pick, who am I going to pick actually? Man, that's, I really should have thought this through before I came on. How about Adam Nicholas? If WWE are, you know, the kind of guys who want to push the most oil painting looking handsome bastard around, Adam Nicholas is the guy. He's an absolute piece, he's a perfect 10, and he's also a very talented guy as well, so get him in that spotlight. WWE, yeah, do that. Anyway, we're going to move on to our and finally, and this one comes via Jamie Rakes on Twitter, whose name on there is hashtag a little bit of the bubbly, very good stuff, who atted me last night actually saying, please explain to me the Shagger in Shagger Dave. Who started it? Was it myself? And how? The problem with What Culture Office and like all the stuff we have going around in here, we cycle through like in-jokes and banter and patter so quickly that it's really hard to attribute things, but I think I came up with Shagger Dave, maybe. I know that the general thought behind it is that it's just kind of funny, like the idea of Dave Meltzer, whose Twitter persona is kind of bumbling and all over the place and he replies to all these nutjobs, is some kind of rampant shag man. I just think that's pretty funny. Also, he's really stacked, so it's kind of believable. But then he follows up here, Jamie does, asking, is this why? And he has quote tweeted one of my all-time favorite tweets from the Shag Master here, who is replying to someone called Unknown Logan. Take this out of context. Someone was asking what the most memorable moments in his life were. And Dave, married man, Dave Meltzer, 60-odd years old, replied, mine was my kids being born and getting awards, sex with people who shall be left unnamed, and Fry Takayama. Sex with people who shall remain unnamed. Not his wife then. Good one, Dave. Well done, great stuff. That's what I'm talking about when I mention his bumbling Twitter persona. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in all the way to the end. As usual, you can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. That is where you can send your Twitter questions. No news video tomorrow, obviously. It's Sunday. I'm not coming in on Sunday because I'm not mental. However, we will have one on Monday, myself and Adam Wilborn. We will get to some of our favourite Twitter questions right then. You can also follow me at Andy H. Murray. I haven't really thought of anything for the H to stand for today because it's Saturday and I can't be bothered, but you guys can make that up. Go on, suggest some stuff in the comments. Chatter all way. Like, share, subscribe. You can listen to this as a podcast. Can't remember Adam Wilborn's spiel, but you can do that too if you like that kind of thing. And yeah, kind of made an arse of this ending, but bye.